difficulty logging in at this time, we have contacted Micah Brown to perhaps reach out to them to see if they need assistance or if they're just unable to attend at this time. Regardless, we're going to move forward. We have a lot of information to cover and to review today. But first and foremost, it's my pleasure to welcome everyone to the Gateway School District Task Force Reopening Committee meeting. On March 13th, 2020, Gateway School District, along with nearly 500 other schools in Pennsylvania, essentially shuttered its doors. And while overnight changing the way we deliver our education model to effectively an online format with teachers, students, staff, principals, but most importantly, our children working together to ensure that we were able to continue our educational mission and effectively deliver the continuity of education plan, which was mandated by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So first and foremost, I would like to commend everyone for their efforts. And it was a huge undertaking, and we were able to collectively work together to ensure that our students receive education. Upon conclusion of the 2019-20 school year, central office and building principals have worked tirelessly in preparing for reopening for the 2020-21 school year, which I need to add is nearly almost 1 month away. It's pretty amazing if you think about it. Where did summer go? I think all of us have been reflecting upon everything that's been happening in our country, in the world, but also understanding that we have a need to educate our children moving forward. Embedded within the Gateway School District mission statement, and I often refer to that at any meeting we have, either public or private, either public. The mission statement has a phrase that we must promote academic excellence, but also do it in a safe and fair environment. Nothing but speak volumes.
I can't hear you at all. Something happened to your sound.
Martin concurs. Very muffled.
Can everyone hear me now?
No, you're really faint.
Can everyone hear John?
I hear John. Martin hears John.
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
It's very faint.
Sounds like far away from the microphone.
I'm as close as I want to get the mic. Thank you, Mr. Ritter. He has loaned me his microphone.
That's much better.
Excellent. I was referencing the Gateway School District. 1 second, we're getting a. We'll try it now. Can everyone hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Thank you.
Good.
Referencing the mission statement, and within that mission statement is to promote academic excellence in a safe and caring environment. Needless to say, that is first and foremost with every decision that we make regarding our upcoming reopening of Gateway School District for the 2021 school year. The health and safety of all constituents, our students, staff, community, is paramount to everything we do moving forward. And it's important that we understand how complex this entire situation is. And it has been a tremendous challenge to both our communities of Monroeville and Pitcairn in many different ways in order to settle upon what we view the opening of school to be like. In front of you, you will see the agenda covering today's meeting, but also the agenda will move into our meeting on Thursday and result in a health and safety plan that will be developed from our cooperative exchange today and Thursday and presented to the board for approval on the 21st. With introductions, as I stated earlier in a letter I sent out to all of our families, we have identified as the pandemic coordinator, which is mandated through the Department of Education. And the governor's office is Dr. Dennis Chakey. Dennis also serves as our safety coordinator for the district as per Act 44. Also, we have representation that I've listed on our committee, which includes school board, superintendent, assistant superintendents, building and grounds coordinator, director of food and nutrition, principals, athletic director, Gateway Education Association teachers. I've been communicating with Mr. Grant Sample, the GEA president, for the last several weeks, and reached out to him, and he in turn communicated with me to invite teachers representing each level of education, elementary, middle school, and high school. Also, we have our technology department, parents and guardians, and community specialist, which I will reference here in the near future. As we scroll down, examining our goals for today and ultimately at the conclusion of Thursday's meeting, we have put together the Special Advisory Council on COVID-19 for the reopening health and safety plan, which is mandated by PDE. In addition, everyone today will assist the Gateway School District and our school board in planning and decision making. We will also review prior to board adoption on July 21st, school board meeting. We will review the document that will be presented to the school board and ultimately the public. We must also recognize that we must have a consensus, a recommendation moving forward. And in order to do so, we must collaborate effectively and efficiently, while also recognizing that healthy deliberations are essential with what we plan on discussing today. But we must remain civil in understanding that everyone's opinion counts. Also, bring best thinking forward. Let's talk about solutions to issues that we bring up and not necessarily problems. Information that we will be reviewing, and I'm going to ask Dr. Chakey if he could click on that first link. Pennsylvania Department of Education provided all school district stakeholders preliminary guidance for phased reopening of pre-K to 12 schools. Now, clearly, I'm not going to read verbatim this document. However, the links are provided for each individual on this committee over the course of the next 2 days to look through, read through, take some notes, maybe develop a list of questions as you read through this. Essentially, the color-coded system that I referenced in my initial letter to our families indicates that red, yellow, and green, similar to the traffic signals, is used within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for designating certain criterias for reopening. We will oftentimes reference these as we move through the opening of these plans. I could have Dr. Chakey click back to the agenda. Under letter B, if Dr. Chakey can click on the pandemic roadmap. This visual tool was provided to superintendents across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to utilize within our committee meetings to have a visual depiction of how this process begins and ultimately how it should end with providing high quality professional learning. If you look at the first icon on the left-hand side, you would see a school bus. And essentially underneath there, it indicates that we must essentially establish a team. And within this comprehensive plan, this team must reflect various stakeholders from out our communities that can provide information, but also advise as far as how we're going to reopen to ensure the health and safety of not only our students, but staff and community members. Right underneath the establishing a team, you will see a icon that indicates health and safety plan template. If I could have Dr. Chakey just click on that. This takes you to the Pennsylvania Department of Education website with information regarding preliminary guidance for opening, but also it indicates a download the phased reopening health and safety plan template. If Dr. Chakey can simply click on the download. And open that up. And there it is. This document will serve as our health and safety plan template, which will be presented to our school board on Friday, the 17th, for everyone to review, meaning our school board, for adoption on the 21st at the official school board meeting. It is during that time that we will present an overview of this document with information that we gather and retrieve from everyone today, from not only today's meeting, but also on Thursday. This is a very comprehensive document that every district throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania must complete and have board adopted, but also place on the district website prior to the onset of the 2021 school year. We will be referencing this template throughout the next two meetings that we have. Dr. Chakey, if you can go back to the roadmap. If everyone could take a moment to just simply review the visual roadmap, you will see the different steps needed in order to ensure that we have input from stakeholders, community members, staff, etc., with our reopening plan. Jakey, if we can go back to the agenda, please. Also included under letter D, pandemic reopening resources. You will see a list of reopening resources that have been distributed through the intermediate unit, superintendents, various stakeholders throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to the governor's office, to also Secretary of Education Pedro Rivera's office, for dissemination to our districts. I have, along with the other assistant superintendents in my office currently right now, Dr. Chakey and Dr. Rossi, have reviewed each and every one of these documents to ensure that the guidance and recommendations coming from all different levels are made aware of, included within our thought process, but also used as a reference in case there is a situation that arises that perhaps we need information on to help make a knowledgeable decision. So please, during the course of the next couple of days, if you have an opportunity to review these documents, it will help in our planning. Dr. Chakey, if we can go back. Also, I've reached out to Forbes Hospital and contacted Dr. Mark Rubino, and he has, in turn, assisted Gateway School District, along with other school districts throughout Western Pennsylvania, in aligning us with a physician consultant for reopening up of our schools. If Dr. Chakey can link on this. They are currently working on a return to school and work health guidance from medical experts that they plan on unveiling to the school districts through the Allegheny County Health School Consortium. So we have at our disposal medical experts that we can effectively run this plan through in order to see and vet if there are other ideas or suggestions that our healthcare medical experts will provide us in helping opening up our schools. So Maureen Goodfellow, I've reached out to her, and we plan on having a Zoom meeting with her so she can introduce this plan with Allegheny Health Network. So there's more to come on this, but essentially our plan will be vetted through the medical experts. Dr. Chakey, if we can go back to at this time, Dr. Chakey, along with Dr. Rossi, will begin to show the plan that we've essentially put together at this point, looking for feedback. So I ask that everyone just kindly pay attention, and afterwards we'll continue through the agenda and, of course, ask for questions and comments. So at this time, I will turn it over to Dr. Chakey and Dr. Rossi.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Sounds good here.
Yes. Good here.
Yep.
Okay. Just to begin today, one of the most powerful things that we gained throughout this process was getting a lot of feedback from parents and diving into some of the data that we received from the online surveys. Dr. Rossi is going to review that to begin the presentation today.
Thanks, Dr. Chakey. We sent out 2 surveys this year to parents. The first survey was sent out May 1st via Skyward, and that was to get a sense of our online remote virtual learning and what was working with parents and, quite frankly, any frustrations they were experiencing. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, there you go. Couple things we wanted to know was, can our students access the learning materials at home? And you can see by this screenshot that they were able to do that. Nearly 83.4% were able to access all the learning materials. And that did get better as we progressed and as we learned as a staff more about the remote learning. Next slide. The second question we asked regarded the online assignments themselves. Are they appropriate? With the caveat of considering the circumstances. Being shut down on a Friday and then trying to turn this around in 5 to 8 days posed some challenges. However, we had around 78% of the parents agreed or strongly agreed that they were able to access the online assignments. And again, that got better as we moved along the remote learning experience. We had some open-ended comments, some themes emerged. What worked well, we found that the Google Suite, for the most part, worked well. The communication from teachers and the flexibility that the teachers and principals allowed the parents and the families to get familiar with it first and then to progress after that. They appreciated that. That was very clear throughout the comments that the parents appreciated the flexibility early on, especially. Some areas of growth. One big one was the math instruction was very difficult for parents at home. We've learned some things, and if we get back to that same situation, it will be better. But math was a big one. Some technology issues as well. Again, that was fewer as we moved through the remote learning experience. And one thing was loud and clear that the parents wanted more live instruction from the school. And again, we have some things planned for that as well if we're put in this situation again. There's just some sampling of parent comments around those themes of what worked. Take a second to read those. And then some of the frustrations again, as we mentioned. Okay. Then our second survey that we sent was distributed June 16th via Skyward. It was open for a week, and this was about reopening of schools. We received a lot of parent input, around 1,100 surveys submitted. All schools were represented. Now, we don't know how many unique because it was anonymous, but regardless, we had an overwhelming amount of parents respond to the survey, and we received some good feedback. The first one, the question dealt with how comfortable parents were with sending their children back to the school building as of August 20th. But the parentheses here said it all, is with additional precautions. So we had 60% of the parents said yes, they're comfortable. But if you look at the comment section, they had a lot of questions about what are the precautions. So you'll see that as we go through. The second question is, what is your level of comfort with a full-time return to the school building or face-to-face instruction? You can see it's a little more split. We had roughly 56% of the parents say they're very comfortable or comfortable with that. Around 26.5%, 27% were very uncomfortable or uncomfortable. Level of comfort with 100% online instruction. %, uncomfortable to very uncomfortable with that option. Next slide. The blended model. We had roughly 42% of the parents either comfortable or very comfortable with that. Roughly a third of them uncomfortable to very uncomfortable. And again, roughly a third that was neutral. So pretty good split here as well. Then the fully online option, half the parents who responded said they were not interested. 35%, as you can see, not sure. and about 12.4% indicated yes. And that's around 147 parents. And that is something that we're going to take a look at because it could have some budgetary implications as well. So we've been working on that throughout the summer as well. Again, some sampling of comments, and these are unedited. Take a second to read those. And then there were, you saw there was over 1,100 individuals who responded, and there were a lot of comments that we had to go through. And I can assure you, we've read every comment probably 3 to 5 times by now. So these are some of the trends that emerged. And we didn't have a software program that went in and disaggregated the trends. It was just us taking notes. What we found was parents seemed to be open to the hybrid option. Keeping in mind that the online learning that we delivered in the spring wasn't optimal, but it will be better next time if we have to go to that, or if we have to do an online option. There's a concern for working parents and how that would work. We had a few comments about they have concerns about their children wearing face masks all day. How would we go about implementing that? A lot of questions about the precautions. What are the precautions? How are we cleaning and sanitizing? How are we doing it? How often are we doing it? And there were even some questions about relating to the severity of the pandemic. So a wide range of comments, but it gave us a lot of good feedback that we were able to help build the plan.
All right, thanks, Dr. Rossi. So that brings us to some of the academic options that we've been discussing for students and families. And with that being said, we definitely want to get students back into school. But at the same point, our top priority is to definitely assure safety for staff and students. So we're taking a look at 2 different separate options. Option number 1, a blended learning model. And then option number 2, Gateway School District Cyber School. I'm going to go through each of these options to provide a little background as to what they may look like. And we'll also talk about some other components that we have embedded right into the health and safety plan. One thing to note too, that we look at this as a transition back to school. Not saying that this is going to be forever, but we see this as a transition, this blended learning model, as we begin the new school year. What this would do is balance in-person learning and remote learning for all students. Essentially, each school would be divided into 2 cohorts. We'll call that a cohort A and a cohort B. We'll take a look at the student population and divide them equally alphabetically. Now this is going to be tricky because we can't just stop on one letter. It's going to fluctuate a bit depending on the different number of students within each class. For example, if it's kind of loaded in the beginning of the alphabet, we're definitely going to have to look at that and kind of balance that as we assemble these cohorts. Another thing that we wanted to put out there immediately is the fact that all siblings will remain in the same cohort. So families won't have a situation where they have a student at the high school that's going on a particular day and a student in the elementary school. District-wide, we will definitely leave siblings in the same cohort. Our target date is August 3rd. That's our target date to get families this information so that you can know what cohort your child is in, either cohort A or cohort B. So essentially, cohort A will attend school for in-person instruction while cohort B remains at home and engages in remote learning. Thinking forward to the first week of school, Thursday, August 20th, cohort A will attend school for live face-to-face instructions. We think this is essential because that'll give a point of contact to the students. It'll allow them to get back to some type of normalcy, returning to the school building. On that Thursday, though, cohort B will remain at home. But Friday, August 21st, that second day of school, we'll flip it where cohort B will attend school for live face-to-face instruction while cohort A remains at home. Now, thinking about this, we're trying to create social distancing to protect all stakeholders. Now, as we move to the second week of school there, this will be a typical schedule. On Monday, cohort A will attend, cohort B engage in remote learning. The remote learning is going to look a lot like it did last year, but we've learned a lot from the different parent surveys, and we definitely want to enhance some of the experience for students. Tuesday, cohort A will attend again while cohort B is at home. Wednesday, this will be a break in the week that will allow students to remain at home and engage in remote learning. Specifically, the day will provide an opportunity for students to complete the week's work, maybe receive some remediation, engage in enrichment activities. We look at a potential situation where teachers are available via Zoom. For example, we know that the experience in the beginning of, well, at the end of last year, a lot of students and some parents struggled with the math instruction. I know myself as a parent, sometimes I would get frustrated in assisting my kids with their homework. Wednesday could potentially be used as a day where the teacher can run through different concepts. They can have Zoom meetings. They could be showing potentially videos of whatever concept they're covering there, all in an effort to support teachers or support families and students. The other aspect of having this Wednesday that's going to be beneficial is all school buildings will be deep cleaned to prepare for cohort B. Now, Thursday and Friday, when cohort B arrives, cohort A will stay home and engage in remote learning. Then there's that natural break again over the weekend or on Friday when the school buildings are deep cleaned and prepared for cohort A's return on Monday. And we wanted to make sure that everyone had a good understanding of the cleaning, the sanitizing, the disinfecting that's going to occur throughout all the school buildings. Our custodians have done an excellent job so far. I mean, they have done a tremendous job in assuring the safety of students and staff. We just wanted to reiterate that some of the touch points, the common spaces will be cleaned at least 2 times during the school day. Examples of these are door handles, light switches, some faucets. After school, the entire buildings will be cleaned, sanitized, emphasis on the common spaces. Wednesday and weekends, like I mentioned previously, will be utilized for enhanced cleaning of all schools. An additional item that we're going to write right into our plan is individual sanitation stations within each classroom. And we know that there are hand sanitizers on the wall and some other items there to assist, but we're talking about individual crates that can be available in each classroom that can include the items such like hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, maybe additional face coverings, gloves, etc. But we'll make sure that students are aware of that, teachers will be aware of that, and make sure that we utilize that in order to ensure a safe and secure environment. Social distancing, some of the safety protocols. We know that all individuals within the school must wear a face covering. This is the expanded face mask order that was adopted in PA. When they're in situations that they're not 6 feet apart. Now, we're going to have a lot of discussion around this. Students may remove the face coverings when they're eating or drinking when spaced at least 6 feet apart, seated at desks, or engaged in any activity where they could put that distance, that social distance between themselves and others. We also wanted to note at the bottom of the slide, any student that has a medical condition or disability will not be required to wear a face covering. So this is going to be an ongoing conversation around this that we're going to have the entire year. Classroom learning spaces, we're preparing now to allow for social distancing, removal of extra tables, a lot of the non-essential furniture, plexiglass dividers for small group instruction, desks, procedures. We're also talking with principals about and welcome feedback from teachers around limiting sharing of materials, for example, the headphones and devices. We're also preparing for the hallway travel, this use of common spaces, signage for travel patterns, one-way travel for students and staff. Also, thinking toward transportation. Students will wear face coverings and be socially distanced on each bus. If we do go to a blended model, then essentially that cuts the student population in half, so the transportation schedule will run as a typical school day. And we understand that there are some buses that may have a little more capacity than others. We're going to have to look at those on a case-by-case basis, but we're going to have to make sure that we can social distance students on each bus. Cleaning of the buses, we talked to some of the individuals there, and we have disinfectant sprays. It's like a fogger. It's done 2 times per day to ensure safety. Also, thinking toward technology, we know that this can be a huge component with the remote instruction. So all students will receive a device in order to successfully engage. Google Classroom will remain as the primary learning program. Also, Wi-Fi will be available upon request. Any family that needs it, we will make sure that you get it. Technology help desk be available to support students and families as well. So that kind of wraps up that option 1, the blended learning model. We also wanted to reiterate that the other option, option 2, is also there as well. We have the Gateway School District Cyber School option, and Dr. Marcy Klinger is the Cyber Academy Director, and we can definitely have conversations with parents about enrollment into the Cyber Academy, and also provide other assistance into how to make that option work for your family as well.
In regard to the cyber option, we are working with Dr. Klinger, and we'll be examining this as well with our principals to expand this, maybe to take a greater role in this as a district. Currently, we use the Allegheny Intermediate Unit, Waterfront Learning, for this option, but we're looking at ways to bring it in-house, and essentially use our teachers. And that could look in a variety of ways. It could be video lessons. It could be our teachers assigned to use that platform, but be able to customize and personalize it for our students. So again, that's a big endeavor, but we're working hard on it to see if we can enhance that experience for the students.
Okay. So at this point, I know that a lot of information has been put out there. We'd just like to provide an opportunity for everyone on this call to offer some thoughts, some feedback. We're going to be recording some of these questions, some things that we may not have readily available now, but we will be working on between now and our next meeting.
Can I ask you to do one thing?
Yes.
This is Mary Beth. Can you go back to the cohort A and B and just review again how many days a week cohort A students are in class and cohort B? Just go over that one more time. Thanks.
Essentially, essentially we'll have a student with, if I'm a student at Gateway School District and I'm in cohort A, I will attend school physically for face-to-face instruction 2 days out of the 5-day school week. For example, I would go on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday would be the live conference where I can receive some remediation and also look at some support there. And Thursday and Friday, I would stay home as well because the other cohort would physically be in the school building. And it's just a transition phase. This is a lot of this can definitely change based on the CDC guidelines.
Okay, I understand. So they're in school 2 days a week initially.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Did I say something?
Yes.
Now, how is this going to affect special ed in any, have you thought about that? And would they follow that same schedule? Would it be different or what?
We talked with Ms. Bungard about
Mhm.
that. And,
Mhm.
would follow the same schedule, but there would be additional supports in place for our special education students. A big part of Wednesday would be centered upon providing additional supports.
I have a clarifying question. By July 21st, will the entire health plan template be completed for board approval and then submitted to the state?
Yes.
Okay. Because I have questions that they're not currently fleshed out on the presentation, but they are associated with the health response. What our protocols will be with exposure in the building, how we'll communicate that, as well as any isolation or mandated quarantine. So just kind of protocols all around that.
Yeah. And those are definitely going to be involved. They're going to be included right in our template. You know, because I understand what you're saying. If a student comes to the school in the morning and they have a fever and they're showing symptoms, that template's gonna walk through exactly what happens from A to Z with that particular student.
Every building will have, every building will have a designated quarantine room. This will be outlined within the pandemic plan that Ms. Gill was referencing. If student or staff exhibits symptoms at school, she will be immediately quarantined, and a plan for transporting the student and staff member offsite will be implemented by the school nurse and appropriate building level administrator. Currently, right now, the district is examining ways to potentially temperature check, screen individuals upon entry into the buildings. Secretary of Education, Dr. Pedro Rivera, issued a memorandum that he would not necessarily sign off on every district ensuring that they take temperatures. He does not seem to think that it would be practical given the nature of how students board a bus, exit a bus, enter a building in order to ensure that you are capturing every individual with temperature checks. And then if you do have an individual that perhaps has a raised temperature, how does that affect the others who are on the bus as well? So yes, to answer your question, Rebecca, all this will be flushed out within the health and safety plan.
Okay, so just some things I've thought about, because I'm believing that the purpose of this meeting is to kind of start to flush some of it out for the plan. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to fill the time with unnecessary information. But my fear, as just in the building and through the day-to-day of the building, my fear is that temperature checks at the beginning of the day might be a futile exercise, just because Parents may dose their children with fever reducers, and we may not see a full scope of symptoms right at the start of the school day. I would like to proactively continue a communication campaign with families, just regularly reminding them that the importance of staying home when you're not feeling well, showing symptoms, and choosing to send your child to school could result in further quarantine mandated closures, and none of us really want that. So I'm hoping to do a proactive communication campaign with families, reminding them of that, and then possibly having temperature checks maybe later in the morning or before lunch, so that we're having a more realistic view of whether a student has actually had a fever that day. That makes sense, and does that sound reasonable?
It does, because I think the one thing that you stated is that a student may enter the building asymptomatic. However, through the course of the day, may develop a fever, cough, cold, etc. And essentially part of the plan is we will need to train our staff, everyone, in how to look for or examine individual cases, and then report those to the appropriate personnel. This type of professional development would also be needed for our parents and guardians as well, because it's important that they understand that a student, their child, who may be showing symptoms from situations we discussed here, they need to keep that child at home. We can continue the education. We are prepared to modify our attendance policy. In speaking with the state, they agree that there will be flexibility within the attendance policy as we move forward with this. So to answer your question, Rebecca, yes, it starts with professional development and ensuring that everyone is on the same page and looking for those symptoms.
And for the employee side, I can assure you that we're currently working on kind of like one-page checklists that identify exposures, whether it's possible, known, presumptive, what you need to do, what's the protocol. So each individual will have those along with a handbook that goes into some more information on COVID-19 and the protocols that they'll have before school starts.
Okay, and just one last question about that. Will there be, or is there talk about whether it's staff or students, any type of medical verification at any time of like a negative test result?
We have to follow the CDC guidelines on that, and that also pertains to HIPAA rights. So we will have a notification trail that we go through and do. I'm currently actually in a COVID-19 tracer class that's provided by Johns Hopkins that is going to provide us some of that information on the appropriate way to notify personnel.
Okay. Thank you.
Also understanding that once we have a confirmed case of COVID, either through one of our employees, staff, custodian, principal, whoever, we must until follow the advice of CDC and the Allegheny County Health Department. There could be situations where we may have to adjust on the fly for certain buildings to close down during a period of time. This is going to be a very, very fluid situation. However, the data will reflect how and what we do, of course, based off of the guidelines presented to us. I believe Grant Sample had a question regarding what lunch will look like. Within each individual building, we have all-purpose rooms, cafeterias, etc. We are working with the building level principals and also our director of buildings grounds, Bob Brown, to really move and alter the seating to allow that 6 feet of distance in order to have the lunches within the cafeterias. That is first and foremost our goal However, we are prepared to keep a static room in place where lunches could be provided within that classroom. But at this point in time, we do believe that we can accomplish the goal of eating within the cafeterias.
Thank you.
Mrs. Cerrucci has a question. It states, will faculty report on Wednesdays, that day that we will essentially have meetings, not only with family members, but perhaps some IEP conferences. Yes, the staff will need to report on those days, meaning the Wednesdays.
And then the cyber school question too. Says if someone enrolls in the cyber school, but then they want to come back to the school, can they transition a couple months down the road, or do they have to commit to the whole year?
Transition.
We were thinking a transition. However, some schools are suggesting they stay the whole year, but we want to be flexible with our parents and our students. Yeah, maybe quarterly might be a good break, but we would allow them some flexibility in their return.
Hey, Guy, I could chime in on that right now. Currently, we do it quarterly, and they're signed up for it for 9 weeks at a time, unless there's some extreme circumstance that pops up. So I'm assuming we would just continue with that.
That's good. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions and or comments?
I was just wondering, are we going to be trying to maintain the 6 feet distance as opposed to the 3 feet one that they've also been discussing?
Very good question, Mrs. Delaney. There are multiple agencies outside that are recommending anywhere between 3 and 6 feet. The World Health Organization has recommended 3 feet. Pennsylvania Department of Education specifies 6 feet. We are planning on that 6 feet space between desk within the classrooms and also in gathering areas such as the cafeteria. We believe that is essential to ensure health, safety, welfare of everyone.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
You put a bunch of high school kids in a cafeteria at lunch, they're not going to sit 6 feet apart from each other.
We have designated seats, a plan in place, and understanding that a traditional A, B, and C lunch schedule typically has anywhere between 200 to 350 kids in a lunch, understanding that with this schedule, it would be cut in half.
I have a question. What are we thinking classroom sizes are going to look like for those when they're coming back?
Classroom sizes. What do we see it looking like? Dennis, you want to talk about it with split schedule?
Yeah, just to give an example, if you have a high school class, Global Connection 1, and
Can't hear you, Dennis.
just an example of a high school schedule, if there's a Global Connections class in 9th grade and there's 30 students in there, essentially what we're going to try to do through dividing into cohorts is to have half of those students in there. So when we actually are able to get it down to around 15 students per classroom, then we're going to be working with principals in the maintenance department and removing non-essential furniture and making sure that the desks are spaced evenly apart to allow for the social distance.
And at the elementary level, with your specials, your arts, your music classes, How will those operate?
Dr. Rossi?
We've had discussions around all special areas. Our current thinking right now is that they would be in the classroom. They would occur in the classroom, not necessarily an art room or music room to start.
And essentially a split schedule, meaning student-wise. So if a typical first grade classroom is at 20 on day A, cohort A, you would see 10 kids in that room.
Purchase of plexiglass dividers still an option for kindergarten, because I have a few other ideas for that. Is that an option, plexiglass?
We have Mr. Bob Brown, who's present here. He's going to jump on. Bob?
Hello. We have multiple different designs of plexiglass barriers in mind that we're going to provide based on what the classroom setup is. And we will have extras available, you know, for special circumstances. So we'll have them not only for the kindergartens, where the tables are set up to be segregated. We will have them at the teacher's desk. We will have the special ed teachers with sneeze guards as well. So we have multiple different designs that we have to utilize to achieve that.
So as a principal, can I put in like an order or request to make sure that nothing's missed?
You can look at it, and for sure, all eyes are welcome.
Okay, thanks.
And Bob, you want to talk about the face shields?
Can you see this if I hold it up? Face shield. So what we have available as well, and we are purchasing a number of them, they are a full face shield, clear with a foam headband that we're going to have available where different areas the face is necessary for the teaching. So, you know, we do have them, and we're bringing those items in as we speak.
Grant Sample had a question regarding the staff. Mrs. Crump, are you able to see that?
All I see is one that has to do with open houses. What is being done or what options are there with higher risk staff members?
Correct.
We are taking all staff members into consideration. We know that under the CDC guidelines, there are very significant ones that qualify, and we are going to try to do accommodations wherever possible. We encourage that anyone who has high risk, that they reach out to me, and we'll work with them on a one-on-one basis.
Thank you.
Also, Grant, as far as the open houses and meetings, we still have those scheduled. However, anytime that we're able to do a Zoom meeting in replace of having individuals enter the building at this point in time, that would be our recommendation to do Zoom.
Okay.
All very good questions and comments.
Circling back to the classroom floor plans and the essential furniture that Bob was discussing, is there a set kind of standard of the furniture that's essential and what we need to start to move to remove from the rooms, or will teachers be involved in that? Just as long as we maintain 6 feet of social distancing, is there a variety available?
Something that we are working on now. Every building has unique situations that we have to deal with. Shape of the room, size of the desk. So we're going in building to building and laying out what will work to maximize the number of students within the room. whether or not that's how many you need or not. Say you only need 10, but on another day you might need 12. So we are working in each building to figure that out. So there is no cookie cutter plan as far as that goes. Every room could be a little different.
And that's where I'm kind of going. I don't know if it applies K to 12, but for K to 4, this, in order to keep kids truly separate, their materials and everything, they almost need their own desk. So even though 10 students will be in the room on any given day, we might need 20 desks in the room so each kid has their own desk. That way their materials are
Yes,
stored.
we did discuss that, and that's why, you know, the K to 6 has one set of criteria. You know, 7 to 12 could be totally different. So each individual room, especially elementary, is going to be challenging for sure. So we're trying to lay it out to take all of that into consideration. And obviously your input when we're at your building is going to be essential.
Monterre had a question regarding students who perhaps show up at school without a face mask and perhaps even try to board a bus. They are mandated on the buses, but we will have available some cloth or linen face masks in the event a student does show up without one. If it becomes a recurring problem, of course, we'll have to talk or speak with the parent or guardian. That's the way, especially the library space, potentially, if we discuss that, we can't say it's for yet. As a plan is adopted by a school board, after. I'm sorry. The libraries, other large spaces within buildings could possibly be used as classrooms as we adjust the plan, understanding that once we have an officially adopted health and safety reopening plan adopted by the school board on the 21st, we would be meeting with our principals to have them work with them to develop those schedules to reflect how the classrooms would be used. So yes, there is a possibility those rooms, libraries, et cetera, will be operational for classrooms. Yes, Dr. Rossi?
Yeah. Beth, if your question was regarding the classroom libraries and the sharing of books, that's a whole nother aspect as well. We're actually putting, oh, there you go. I see it in there now. I think what we obviously don't want to take reading and books away from students, but unfortunately we have to ensure that they're sanitized. We will be purchasing ebooks, and all elementary students will have access to iPads, and so we've ramped up the ebooks to address some of those situations. So we will be working with the principals about the sharing of books and even about library exchange, which may have to be modified in some way. So good question, and we're working on that.
This is Ramona. I had a question before the libraries about buses. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yes, thank you, Ramona. So far in speaking with STA and Bonnie Isha, our transportation director, we do not at this time have a bus driver crisis as other school districts currently have. Of course, we're always looking for bus drivers, so they will be advertising. And as we move closer to the school year, I'm sure we'll have more information to share.
A question about just daily staffing and the use of substitutes, Because my concern is when flu season ramps up and we're not sure if people have the flu, the cold, or COVID, and absences among our faculty and staff increase, what will we do if we don't have people to supervise children in the classrooms? And will substitutes be limited, or will they be traveling across buildings and across districts?
And Rebecca, very good question, because I've been doing some reading and there have been articles published. In fact, I believe I was reading something this morning about nationally. There's an expectation of substitute teachers not being available at the quantity needed. And I'm sure that's going to place a burden upon every one of our schools and districts within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That is where we need to work collectively, all of us involved, to ensure that we have appropriate personnel within those classrooms to continue our education and learning.
I just want to throw out an idea. If a teacher feels symptomatic but feels well enough to work, would they be able to have the option to be at home running and operating online, even if a classroom was filled with, say, an aide or a paraprofessional?
I'm sorry, Rebecca, could you repeat that?
Yeah, let's say, for example, a teacher feels maybe slightly symptomatic of whatever, a cold, a COVID, whatever, but is well enough to maintain teaching online. Would we be able to explore options where there's a paraprofessional in the classroom and the teacher is online?
That's an excellent question. I'm not sure we're ready to respond at this point in time. There would have to be discussions, of course, with GEA on how something like that would work. But I mean, anything at this point in time, it's a good recommendation.
Yeah, just a thought.
Delaney, I'm sorry, I didn't see the question on the screen.
No, I was just asking, are all the buses going to have available extra masks, because students are not allowed to get on the bus without a mask, right?
Correct.
So they will have available on hand a quantity of masks if they need for any given time for a student to have one.
We will work with STA to ensure either they provide those or we provide those. The last thing I want to do is have a student left at the bus stop and not getting on the bus. So I think it's important that we think ahead and have those available for our bus drivers.
Right.
A lot of our students have seasonal allergies, things like that, as well as staff, myself included, that can mimic some of those symptoms. I mean, what's the protocol for staff and students? You know, if I have hay fever and I'm sneezing a little bit, I mean, am I going to be required to stay home, or is it I have allergies, it's okay to come to school? Because I know people are going to be hypersensitive about any kind of sneezing, coughing, anything like that. So just curious what that's going to look like.
Good question, Grant. I think it's a case-by-case situation. I know Mrs. Crump has been working with PASBO and other school districts to see how they will manage those situations occurring. However, any type of symptom must in fact be reported to the appropriate personnel within the building, whether or not that's the nurse or building level principal, for determination at that point in time.
Thank you.
I have a question for Bob Brown. Hi, Bob. With all the school districts looking to have the plexiglass and everything in their districts, the availability, does it look that we will be able to provide all that is needed?
It appears so at this point. I was on the phone not 2 hours ago with them, going over some of our needs, just trying to figure out all the different configurations that we come across. So I am trying to get this list to them as early as tomorrow so they can get us in their queue, that they feel very comfortable that we will have them prior to school open.
And if I could add on to that, it's important that everyone on this committee understand that we have taken measurements within the offices of every building, because it's important that we have those plexiglass barriers within the offices, also in front of teachers' desks. So we have been on this. Bob has had his people out measuring, and we've been in contact with various vendors, because as something we've seen, we've asked for samples, and it's kind of interesting, you know, when you get certain samples sent to us, the thickness of individual plexiglass or whatever, or the quality of it, it's something that we examine and we want to make sure that it's safe and protective for our staff and employees and students as well.
I'm going to throw out another question here. With what we just went through with the budget, financially, how is this going to affect the district?
We have designated money through the CARES Act. Dr. Chakey, you want to respond to that?
We also were eligible for some money through the Safety and Security Grant.
We're having a hard time hearing you.
We are also eligible for some grant money for pandemic planning. School districts is an extension of the CARES grant. We just completed that particular grant application. We're waiting to find out how much money we can potentially get for that, but that'll be earmarked right to some of these supplies.
Okay, thanks. Another question, with the masks in school, will there be masks in each classroom for the kids that destroy theirs, so they will have a backup?
Yeah, they will. We're going to make sure that we have enough masks readily available for anyone that needs them. Specifically within those sanitation stations, that crate that'll go in each classroom, we'll have a few in there as well. So we should be covered in that regard.
Just from the building level perspective, I've been thinking about this as well. And in addition to the paper products that you can buy that are disposable, I was hoping to reach out to the PTO to see if they would be able to gather monies for the donation of face masks. Even cloth ones can be collected and washed. We have a washer in the lunchroom that we would be able to use, and then they air dry within a few hours. So I think there's options available even through donation and management of that.
Have you been able to secure face masks yet? Because I work in a hospital, and we're still wearing the same mask for 12+ hour shifts because we do not have enough to supply employees. So are we going to be able to supply them for teachers, multiple for students? How long are you expecting them to wear them for before they have to get a new one?
Well, we are actually able to get masks readily available. Plus we have the visors that we spoke of. Now these are not N95 masks like the hospitals are using, and that may be why they're more readily available. But we are also to have them as a backup to the folks that need one, destroy one, to have them on hand, not to supply them on a daily basis to everybody.
So are we asking parents to supply the masks for their children?
Well, the mask, yes, we're supplying a face shield
for the student. So if a family or parent chooses to wear a mask, they can do so.
Jeanette, this is John Ritter. You're onto something there. I could imagine, kids sneezing and ruining a mask every 15 minutes if they've got the sniffles. You don't want those masks loaded up. Well, I just got back from the dentist a little while ago. I got charged $20, having already paid in advance, $20 for what's called a usage fee for the masks and the extra gloves and the extra shields and the extra protocols that they have. So when you go to a care provider now, they have a usage fee of about $20. So what we could do, I'm just proposing this, is that we have the parents pay an extra usage fee at the beginning of the year, and then if the students use the masks and consume that, that's one thing. If not, they get the money back at the end of the year, because guaranteed kids are going to forget their masks or go through 5 or 10 masks a day if they've got the sniffles or sneezes.
Personally, I can't see asking parents to spend any more money than they are spending, with some of them being unemployed.
One of the other options that we talked about doing was reaching out to our PTOs to see if they would be willing to sew. We've had lots of opportunities of people who have called and said, I can sew masks through the summer, would you want us to do that? So that's an option too that we have. We know a lot of our staff are currently making their masks in preparation for coming back, just so they have several on hand so they can wash them every day.
I would bet we would get an overwhelming supply of parents wanting to make masks. I mean, people have been wearing masks for months now. If you want to go into the grocery store, you have to have a mask. So I don't think it's too much to ask parents to send their kid to school with a face covering. But I do think people forget, kids forget, they get broken, they get lost, they get damaged, and we should have a backup. But I don't think it's upon us to provide masks for everyone in the district. That's just my opinion.
You stated earlier that sanitation will occur on Wednesdays, but you also said staff will be working on Wednesdays. How is that going to work? Is there going to be enough time to get everything sanitized after the staff leaves?
Our staff actually cleans and sanitizes nightly. We will be doing additional disinfection and cleaning on the Wednesdays and the weekend. So not only will we do it every night, we work at night. We do not work during the day. So that's where it allows us to do it, on those off days.
Thank you.
What are the thoughts, this is Valerie again, what are the thoughts for the students that are not able to wear masks? I'm talking more special ed students.
Those we'll have to look at individually in the classes and look at the specific students and their needs.
Okay, thanks. Are we going to have the family sign a release? I'm hearing more and more school districts are reaching out to have families sign a release before their students come back to school. What is Gateway's standing on that? I can't hear you.
That is a question we've discussed internally. We may be seeking advice from our school solicitor, but also we've had those conversations through the Allegheny Intermediate Unit as far as a survey to see how many schools would be enacting a policy such as that.
Here's a question for Coach Hall. Have you had any parents not wanting to sign releases for the students with any of the athletic conditionings or anything?
I have had no communication from any parents with a reluctance to sign. Obviously, we had some that were slow to respond, and we, couldn't let the student athletes participate. But I have had no one voice a concern or a reluctance to sign that COVID waiver form to participate in the off-season workouts.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, a lot of excellent questions, comments. Just to wrap up here, if you go back to the agenda, if you would click on the Monitor Allegheny County under number 2 after the reopening plan. Once again, another valuable resource from Allegheny County with information readily available that's updated routinely. And it's something that I know the superintendents and school districts often refer to. So we will use this as a resource determining how, in fact, we move forward. If we go back to the agenda. As Dr. Chakey had mentioned, we are currently taking every question that has come in either from a parent, guardian, community member related to the reopening of schools, and kind of sorting and sifting through those in order to make that FAQ sheet as part of our website. So we will be updating and placing that on our website probably within the next 3 to 4 days with those questions for our constituents and parents and guardians to see. As far as the wrap up of today's meeting, please understand that all the resources that I made available to everyone, if you can read through those as best you can, take a look once again at the PowerPoint for the recommended reopening. On Thursday, we will unveil the completed health and safety plan template for everyone to look at. We will put it up in chunks so we're able to see it and work through it. But essentially, it will outline every question from the Commonwealth, Pennsylvania Department of Education, that they would like to see answered in some form as to how the district will operate with a reopening plan. So I wish to thank everyone for their participation today. If you think of something tonight, moving into perhaps on Thursday, if you want to email us, that would be great. We'll include it within the questions, the FAQs that we have planned to answer. So appreciate everyone's involvement today. A lot of great dialogue. As I think everyone can see, this is a very, very complex issue. A lot to be discussed. I'm sure there's a lot of information that perhaps we have missed, but that's why we have the candidates here with our task force to help work through this process. So again, thank you to everyone involved, and we will see everyone on Thursday at 11 o'clock. It'll be the same time, and an invitation will go out from Mike O'Brown. So thank you again to all. Take care.